Okay. Hi, everyone. We are so happy to have you all here with us today for the Process Mining webinar. My name is Nair, and I'm the Digital Marketing Coordinator here at Kepner-Tregoe. Today, we have both Shane Chagpar and Carl Ackerman with us, two senior consultants here to walk us through and discover the truth about process mining. Feel free to ask questions, which I will relay to the presenters at an appropriate time. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Shane.
Thanks, Ria. So today we're going to be playing out a little bit of a skit for you where I'm going to be a consultant and I'm going to help my friend Carl, who's a plant manager at an automotive factory, learn how to use. Carl, what are you wearing?
This is my PPE, Shane. You know what they say, all of the equipment, all of the time.
Well, I guess you're taking the plant manager role pretty seriously. And today I'm going to visit Carl's plant and see what we can do to improve process and improve his value flow. So, Carl, you let me know earlier on email that you have like more than one or two processes that you use at the plant. Is that right?
Shane, we have all the best processes. We've got lean manufacturing processes in place, continuous improvement all over the place. Our purchasing has great processes. Hey, even our IT guys have processes. ITIL and incident management, we've got everything.
Oh, and of course, quantity versus quality. These are all quality processes too, right?
Well, yeah, our processes are very good and detailed, right?
Well, do they look a little bit like the picture I have on the left? Like there's one box or two boxes going in and out of things. Everyone has a role. There's nice swim lanes. It was made in Microsoft Visio, stuff like that.
Shane, I've seen our processes. That's exactly what they look like.
Funny you say that because I asked your guys to send me over some processes and walk me through it a little bit earlier. And rather than sending me documents, they took me to a war room where I used markers on a whiteboard, which I love because I'm a consultant, of course. But they drew me this, and it didn't exactly look like what I thought a good process should look like. In fact, I think some of that might even be looking like your handwriting. What's going on here?
Well, that's a lot of detail. Detail is good, right?
Well, it can be tough to generate and figure out what does a good process look like. And it's hard for me to say that just because it looks messy, it's bad. So let me give you a couple guidelines. Typically, processes should be able to be split up into three distinct areas or groups for analysis. One is the process itself. Two is the people that undertake that process and try to perform and create value. And the third is the technology that underpins everything and helps those people do well within that process. If I was to give you three key areas to look at for each of these, for processes, I would like them to be stable, agile, and be able to flex with the environment, the products, and your changing customer needs and demands. And of course, a good process should have some sort of quality factors built into it to make sure that we get what we want out. People are the people that do the process. And as you know from Carl Deming, he once said, a bad system will beat a good person every time. And we want to make sure if we're hiring the best, that they feel the best and that they're interacting with the best. Those people need to be skilled. Not only that, they need to be aligned to their goals. It makes no sense to do an activity that you don't believe in or you don't even recognize how it impacts the customer. A supportive environment is one where you're being coached, you're given feedback, and you're being given that feedback in a way that can help you improve for next time. Technology needs to be almost invisible. It's so integrated and part of the role that you're doing that sometimes you forget it's an IT system that's helping you do your role. It should be accurate and represent the right data. And of course, availability is extremely important. Without a really stable system of technology, you're not going to be feeling so great doing your processes.
Well, Shane, I'm very glad you're here to help analyze our processes then.
Yeah. So you want to get started?
Absolutely, let's go.
Well, typically, what we would do is you'd end up with probably a room, brown paper it, 3M stock would go up because we're buying post it notes by the case, and we're writing those post it notes and putting them in places with a group of people in the best way we can. Now, the problems with this is that, even according to this German car manufacturer quote, the traditional approach can sometimes take like 4 months, four people, and it's relying on the memory of those people to do that process and be like, no, 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 this is how I do it. This is how I do it. And the end result is sort of an average of what you might think your process could be, not necessarily 100% accurate.
That's a lot of effort, Shane. And if I look at this, that's going to give me insights into 4-month-old processes.
Yeah,
Why should I even
potentially.
bother?
Well, looking at process and trying to improve it is one of the things that we do all the time. 42% of people that we surveyed said that when you're trying to work on process optimization, they're doing so because of a drive towards customer satisfaction. The others said that it was a desire to improve efficiency and agility. Regardless of your goals, I think all of them are really good and will contribute to a growing business. Of the companies that had process change projects underway, there's 37%. Oh, sorry, I apologize. 37% are currently in process optimization projects through the pandemic, especially with all the digital transformation and other things that have been going on.
Okay, I'm convinced. But you told me here to show me about this new process mining tool.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that process mining tool is very similar to the stuff you've been doing in the past when you're trying to optimize your process. This time, however, we're going to look at real, hard, real time data, and we're going to perform analytics and process optimization on that data in a fast and rapid way. This will allow you to continue your DMAIC cycles much faster than you used to before. Let me show you a little bit of a picture. I took this when I was trying to get some groceries yesterday after I left my hotel. Do you recognize where this is?
That's the grocery store by my house.
Yeah, thanks for that high per diem, by the way. So, when I was walking outside, I saw this beautiful path and it went straight to the street. But as you see, at the end of the street, there was a fence. So I'd have to turn left or right. And what I really, really wanted was to be able to get to the nearest crosswalk. In fact, so did a bunch of other people. When you see something like this where the grass has been degraded and people are showing you that they're trying to get to this crosswalk rather than take this process or this path that you've beautifully laid out to them, this is known as a desire path. And it's really important to respond to desire paths. In fact, this grocery store did. It said, "Stop showing me your desire path. Walk on the paved path." Now, that might not be the best response. I guess it was for the grass. But if we can look at these desire paths, see them, and react to them, we can build a better customer experience.
Shane, that all sounds good. And it's easy to see on this picture what the desired path is. I'm not sure we can see that desired path in my plant.
Well, that was the problem before. Prior to process mining, it was really hard to see desire paths. We would design a process, we'd lay it out nicely, and then we'd go to the brown paper and post-its to try to figure out what's happening. With process mining, you're using a tool that takes live data or saved data, and it can draw this model for you. That's the big hoo-ha about all of this, is you get a really nice drawn model that shows those desired paths. With those desired paths, you can look for bottlenecks, skipped steps, rooms for improvement, and even queue time delays. I think it'll really help you improve your processes.
That looks really good. What else does process mining give me?
Well, other than making the invisible visible and giving you a quicker access to be able to analyze, I think what's super about this is it helps with compliance. It makes it really easy to monitor quality or monitor the performance of a system so that you can make sure to build the right audit reports, especially in some of those industries where that's required. Like I said earlier, it really helps improve your continuous improvement cycle because you're looking at something and being able to react to it very quickly. You want to know the best part? You probably already have the data you need stored in your servers. It's been captured somewhere, and we just need to get access to where that data is so that we can use it, see it, and then build a model off of it.
Okay. Well, is anybody else using this already?
Process mining, depending on who you're speaking to, it's either something you haven't heard of or that you've heard others using. It's become really trending very quietly, very quickly. According to a survey that was done by our friends over at Deloitte, 63% of companies are already implementing process mining right now. And of the other people that responded, 87% were willing to try, but were too confused about what it was or how to attack it, which is why we made this webinar today to help us all out. The scary stat is of the people that were already implementing it, a large majority was already going to be taking their second round. And while doing their second round, they're going to be implementing automation in the forms of scripts and bots so that you can remove the human factor and improve the consistency of some processes that a technology might do more effectively. What this means is if you're not on process mining, you're probably shrinking and not growing. So there's a huge opportunity here for you, Carl.
Shane, I'm sold. Where do we start?
Well, if we could just get a look at your factory, maybe we could even do some process mining today. What do you think? Do you think you might be able to get me on that floor?
Shane, I have time right now. Let's go for a tour.
Perfect. I'm going to get my PPE. So let's take a walk through your car production. What
Well,
does it look
Shane,
like?
yeah. Well, as you can see, all of the material comes in at that material handling station over there. Now, all of the big sheets of metal and so forth goes through our super stomper, where we do all the stamping, right? From the super stomper, it goes through our big parts welding, where we weld the frame of the car. Once it moves on to the next station, where we attach all of the panels on the car and weld all of those pieces together. Once we've got all the welding done, the big frame and panels and everything goes through a big acid bath where we prepare the car for painting. It takes off all the contaminants and just cleans that metal right up. Then it goes through our multi-coat painting process with a bunch of clear coats and drying and finishing, and the guys really polish up the car lovely. Once we have everything painted and so forth, we add in all the components, the big drivetrains and the engines and so forth, as well as the dash and all the plastic components and the chairs and so forth. Once everything's been assembled, we go through our quality inspection. Very detailed inspection right there, Shane, and then we ship it out.
Sounds like there's a lot of steps. I mean, I know this is a manufacturing process, but I'm pretty sure purchasing has a series of steps, and even deploying laptops to your employees have a set of steps where things go from a start to an end and have to flow through different stages where value is added into the chain. For us to do process mining, you're going to use the same steps regardless of your industry, regardless of your process type. You're going to start with what we call prep. And in that prep, you're going to try to figure out who and where the data is stored that we might need to transform into a log. A log is just a fancy way of saying a history of steps and the value that was added along the chain. That log is then uploaded to any tool, whether it's the Kepner-Tregoe tools for process mining that we partner with Appian for, to ServiceNow, to Microsoft, or any other host of free and available tools out there. You'll import this log and create a model. The tough part is when you and I have to look at this model and try to gain some insights. That's still the human component. We're going to have to prioritize those insights and probably get some funding and maybe a project manager on board to get things changed. Once we act on those insights, the process hopefully will have improved, and we can use the same process mining tool and the same series of steps to now analyze where the bottlenecks have moved, shifted, or improved. Let me take you through a walkthrough of those steps in detail. Now, when we were on the plant floor, I took a picture and I noticed that at the assembly, there is actually some data entry, some QR scanning, and some tablets in use by your engineers. Those tablets have forms. And in those forms, I noticed all the things I needed for us to have a great data extract opportunity. Some of those things include unique identifiers, attributes, and timestamps. In fact, all you really need is timestamps and stages to be able to do some basic process mining. The tricky part is getting it out of these systems. You're probably going to have to ask and partner with IT and say, how am I going to gather this data? What kind of security am I going to need to do? What kinds of names of people or parts might I need to scrub for security? And how am I going to interpret this or convert or translate this? Sometimes different stations might do things with a different time zone or local time setting. We might have to do some conversions of currency and other things to make sure that all the data is consistent in their units of measure. We're then going to take an event log, which is just a fancy way of saying a CSV file or a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet is rows. Each of those rows is usually an event. The event has a unique identifier so that we can visually and technologically track it through the system. The event name is the stages that you just showed me. It's what's happening. And the timestamp is when that event started or stopped. For example, material handling looks like it started at about 1:45 a.m. for this one part and finished about 10 minutes later. Event attributes are information that is related to the event that maybe you might want to subfilter on later. So for example, maybe I want to subfilter by cost, or what car was it being used for, or even which shift was operating at that station at that time. This event log is then imported into any of the process mining tools that are out there. When it's done, it creates a very pretty model. In fact, it's really fast at doing this. This is 43,000 cases analyzed, and I think it was like 5 minutes of processing time on a Chromebook.
Wow, Shane, that's a really interesting picture. I
Yeah,
suppose we'd need to analyze it. Do you have time to do that with us now?
yeah, sure. Let's give it a try. Let me show you how we analyze these pictures. When you want to analyze these pictures, you have to ask some questions like, what kind of workarounds are happening here? Where are the bottlenecks happening? What's really happening compared to what I hear is happening? And where can I improve? Some of the key areas that I like to circle, including my favorite colors to do so in, are skipped stages, bottlenecks, rework loops, and cost of delays. Let me show you an example of each of these, or let's see if we can find some in your factory. I hope we don't, but I kind of hope we do. So, skipped stages. I gave a quick look over, and I noticed that X7 assembly and X9 assembly, there's a big amount of parts that go to quality control, but there's just under 20% from each of those cars that seem to miss quality control altogether and go out to the floor. What's happening here?
I know that when we get really backed up and busy, that we sometimes skip quality control. I had no idea it's almost 6,000 cars that skip quality control. That's not great.
Well, I guess
We
what my
value our quality, Shane.
yeah, but I guess what my grandfather told me might be true, right? Never buy a car produced on a Monday or a Friday. I hope you can change this.
Definitely going to work on it.
Let's take a look at some bottlenecks. Well, if I'm looking at this process here, I see that there's rotors. Those seem to be very important parts as they're used in X9s, X7s, and X8s. But it seems that the rotors destined for the X7s or X8s, they end up needing to be reworked a lot. About 6,400 of them need to be reworked. And that rework is taking about 31 times more processing than the time it actually took to create the rotor in the first place. I'm not sure if we need to improve the quality coming out of the RL rotor shop, or if we need to improve our rework technology, or maybe even improve the amount of time it takes between these two steps. But there's definitely something to discuss here. What do you think?
Shane, I've definitely spoken to the guys at Rotors about the quality of their product, of the builds coming out of their shop. I think we should have another chat with them.
Well, it might have already worked. Normally, a rework loop, which is something that, starts and ends at the same place, normally that's a bad thing. But when I look at this example, I noticed something. For rotors being rebuilt at that stage, it looks like it only takes 27 minutes versus 14 hours to be able to do that work. That means doing it at the station is about 32 times faster than sending it out for manual rework. What's more interesting about this is that if we actually keep the rework loop, the amount of queue time is 2.4 days, which means it takes about 2.4 days for an engineer to probably find some time to rework these things. But if I was to send it to manual rework, that movement of the part takes almost 6 days. In fact, if I'm looking at this honestly, if you killed manual rework, you probably could open up that area of the factory and benefit by 3.2 days of shorter wait and a 32 times faster process time. You might need to shift some employees over to rotors, so it's not like we're going to be firing these guys, but that might make a major improvement to the speed of your X8s and X7s.
And in addition, it waits for 6 days there, you said, right?
Yeah,
Well, I'm running out of space everywhere.
well, that's not the only place where I'm noticing that a lot of space might be consumed. Costs of delays seem to be huge. I'm looking at the X8 assemblies, and if I add up all these lines and average them in terms of the amount of queue time that it takes to get from one area to another, it's about a 6-day average just for the X8 production alone.
Shane, we definitely don't need a queue of 7 days worth of equipment waiting for the next station. That takes up way too much space. I think we can shorten that and improve the space we have available.
Yeah, it's all about reducing waste. And in this case, this is waste of space. A lot of energy going on here. Now, with all of these insights that we have, we're not exactly sure which one's the priority. We probably have to figure out which one of these cars sells the most, which one of them makes the most margin. You can't just make optimizations because you found something that needs to be optimized. You need to work on the weakest links. And that requires also understanding what builds the highest customer value. You know what's a perfect tool for that? Situation Appraisal by KT. Have you been through one of our classes?
Hey, I get to use my new card. That's exciting.
Yes,
But
sir.
how do I know it's working?
Well, what we're going to do is each of these insights, we're going to build into our situation appraisal and we're going to call it a concern. We're going to clarify that concern by walking through and trying to fully understand the impacts that that concern builds. We're then going to plan involvement and actually begin to execute our project. As part of our action statements, we're probably going to need to answer the questions about who might need to be developed or retrained, who are we going to coach, what specifically needs improvement, what are we going to change, by what time, and which ones have the priority. You might need to involve other stakeholders, such as business leaders, to give you some direction on what's strategically important for the company before you go spending money optimizing something that's on the way out or on the way down.
I'm familiar with situation appraisal and it's definitely the right tool for this job. But like I said, I'd like to know this is working.
Well, another thing that we can do is we can install a dashboard. A dashboard will give you the opportunity to see real time information about the processes. To make this work, you need to link it to the data source. So if you got an extract in the past that was just an Excel file or a CSV, you probably need to connect your process mining tool to that direct database. Don't worry, it's all safe and secure, and you could probably run a lot of these tools in-house, so you don't need to utilize the cloud or any other external infrastructure. When you get that set up, you'll be able to see the historical performance as well as the current performance, which will allow you to really quickly figure out if there's any deviations. You're going to use this data to then ask, where's our next bottleneck? What workarounds or new workarounds have people put in place? And how can I sort of improve process and overall value coming out of these processes? This dashboard didn't take me very long to make in the tool that we use, and I think you can utilize it right away.
I like that it's really good real time data. Well done, Shane. I
Thanks.
want to make sure this goes well. What can go wrong in this thing?
Well, there are a few critical success factors that make any process mining exercise much better from the beginning. The top five are shown here. The first one is you have to have a good relationship with your IT folks because they're the ones that are going to get you the systems that you need and access to those systems so that you can pull the data. You might have to explain the type of tool you're using and get them to check it out. But you don't need the IT people to necessarily do all the analysis. The quality of data sometimes is suspect. There could be things like misnamed stages or other areas where you might have to improve things, like fixing time zones or changing currencies so that they're standard. This is the same type of challenges you might face in doing any other type of data analysis, but still has to be considered here. Setting clear targets is also a key success factor. You can't just tell your people, Carl, that you want to go from 6 days of production weight to one or zero. It's just too much of a jump. I would suggest you set staged milestones so that everyone keeps their morale up. To help with that, let's get some leadership commitment. And I'm not talking the, oh yeah, you can have a pizza party leadership commitment. I'm talking real leadership commitment, where the goals are fully understood and everyone wants to win in the same way. You won't need 4 months and 4 weeks of dedicated resources, but you do need to put time on people's calendars, especially if you want to execute based on the insights you found. It's no good to find something and not do anything about it. That's like restoring an incident without actually solving a problem. It's no good in IT, and it won't work for your factory floor either.
Shane, all of that makes sense, and you've given me a lot of information. Let me see if I have all of this right. Firstly, process mining is a tool that uses data mining, right, with some analytics, and we use it to optimize stuff. It's like a very cool tool. It's a very fast tool, and it uses our real-time data instead of that 4-month-old stuff.
Mhm.
It looks like it will work in just about any industry because we'll work in our purchasing, in our manufacturing, in our IT side. Okay, we don't need a lot of data, just some event stuff with the activity happening and timestamps for those, right?
That's
And
right.
some identifiers. Okay. Um, you know what? This will probably help us quite a bit with our compliance and our audit and making sure people follow the process and finding ways to improve it. Okay. And you know what? People are always pushing me for more automation and AI. I can see how this would combine with that. Well
Yes.
done, Shane.
Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate the plant tour. Hopefully, process mining can help you improve your organization. I don't know if it'll improve your fashion sense too much. I think you have a second set of glasses on top of your hat.
I've been looking for those. Thank you,
Ha!
Shane.
Well, you have a good one, Carl.
Shane, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane and Carl. So we can open it up for some questions now. I see that we have a couple in the chat already. So we have one from somebody in Croatia. They would like to know, how long does a process mining project take once initiated?
Well, process mining itself is just a tool that is part of a larger diagnostic. It gives us quicker, deeper insights. So it will reduce the time that we spend on diagnostics. The actual diagnostic process is obviously depends on the question you're answering and the problem you're trying to solve. So the diagnostic itself is what we would scope out rather than the tool of process mining. It just makes it
Mhm.
faster.
Yep. Thank you, Carl. We have another question here. How much data do we need to have for process mining to be of value?
Actually, not a lot. We need we need that event data and the timestamps and so forth. But if you have a set of a couple of hundred events, that's enough to start seeing some patterns. Obviously, the more data we have, the longer we have, the better the insights will be, the more detailed the insights will be. But you don't really need a whole bunch of records. Having said that, the other side of it, we can go with a whole bunch of records, hundreds of thousands of records, and see what the long term trends are and so forth. So the more data you have, the more insights you're going to have, but you don't need a lot in order to get started.
All right. Okay. Shane, I'll ask you this question here. So, should we start with automation, then add process mining, or do we start with process mining?
It's nice to be able to look at process mining to figure out where your gaps might be and then
Mhm,
prioritize where is your money and time best spent. I don't usually like to add infrastructure first because
mhm.
we might have been able to use that infrastructure better elsewhere. So a good situation appraisal in between, I think, is supremely helpful.
All right. We see another one here. Can this be implemented in IT infrastructure?
Absolutely. In fact, IT is one of the places where we have the best stages throughout. Uh, Whatever system you're using in order to track the work done in IT will
Mhm.
have that event logs naturally, and it's a very easy import from most of the IT systems. That's where we see the most benefit in process mining.
All right.
Agree.
Okay. And in what functional areas does process mining create the best value? In manufacturing, service, or other functional areas?
For this one, it would be all of the above. I mean, when it comes to manufacturing, I think most people already have their processes under control. If I was to go
Mhm.
into a manufacturing process and say I can improve your process by 15%, they would call me a liar and laugh me out of there. And that's because they've just spent so much time improving. I think IT infrastructure is the area where we don't treat it like a factory. When we look at an incident, for example, when an incident is detected, and then we look at the response rate. We look at the
Mhm.
time it takes to make a decision, the time it takes to make a fix, and the time it takes to communicate it back. Those are
Right.
the areas where we don't treat things like a factory and could probably use from the biggest improvements.
All right. We're gonna circle back a little bit. I see that regarding the IT question, we have something else around it. Somebody has asked, so it sounds like we can leverage any IT service management tool that contains event data to enable this. Is that correct?
Absolutely, right? Any system that you can extract data from in some kind of format, whether it is a CSV or Excel and a readable format that you and I can read, we can transform into something that process mining can use. So if you can extract that data, you can use it.
And you can combine from different systems too. So if you
Yeah.
have like a paging out tool and a different tool for ticketing, and then a different tool for like Jira for developmental fixes, you can combine those three streams into one file. And the process mining tool will allow you to connect them and automate the import of that data as well.
Mhm. All right. And how do you measure the ROI efficiency gains?
That one's easy. When you're looking at, you have to be able to do a benchmark first. That's very
Mhm.
important. So, for example, in Carl's process, we saw that there was like 6 days of wait time between rotors and making a car. After you then take and make an initiative and execute some sort of change, like we put in, I don't know, maybe a faster way to move the parts. We give everyone a dolly, for instance.
Mhm.
What you want to do is you want to measure the process afterwards. And that delta between how long it took before and how long it took now, that's going to be part of your timing gain. I usually use $75 per hour saved to be
Mhm.
the fully loaded overhead cost of an employee's time saved. Your fully loaded overhead cost might be different, but if I saved an hour, I would say that that's $75 per hour saved per hour that I run my 24-hour process or whatnot. That's how I'd get ROI.
All right. All right. What metrics are you seeing the most improvement in from organizations that offer customer support services?
For this, it would be MTTR, mean time to resolve or mean time to restore. We're also
Mhm.
seeing mean time to engage, and we're seeing mean time to notify. When you start measuring how long it takes people to go from thinking to executing, you might start to realize we know the fix in like 2 minutes, but it takes 10 minutes to restart the server, or maybe it takes an hour to find the keys to the server room to unlock the door. When you start pointing out those areas of failure, it becomes easier to stop blaming IT for the problem and start saying, look, this was a facilities related issue. We've got to improve our handover process between those two. And that's how
Mhm.
you're going to get those bigger gains.
Right.
I've also seen improvement in the hops between teams, reassignment
Yes,
counts, and so forth.
Okay. And someone has asked, is this in the family of predictive analytics?
I would say no. This
Okay.
is using historical data, even if it's real time, 1 second ago historical data, it's using the past to measure what's happening currently.
Mhm. All right. Please name some of the process mining models and or software products.
There are quite a few out there. Microsoft has just released theirs, which is integrated with their stuff. There's SoLogic is one of the big players. Appian is who we've partnered with because
Mhm.
we have a very good customer support relationship with them, and it's part of a bigger um, platform that they have. They've got the portals, they've got AI and automation built into, and each feeds into the other. So we've partnered with Appian, but there are quite a few of the process mining tools out there, and they're
Salonis,
coming. Solonis
Mhm.
getting more,
ServiceNow, yeah.
yeah, getting more abundant now.
All right. Why KT? What does KT bring to the party that other consultants don't have?
Ah, well, analytics has been around for a while, right? Um, and what we do at KT is understand the human aspects of performance as well. So process mining is a tool to do the normal analytics, but we've got 60 odd years of process experience and understanding the best processes and thinking processes that attach to normal processes. So it's not just the physical process that you see that people use every day. It's also improving how people think, and we analyze using our tools. We improve um, Using the analytics as well, we improve how people do their work and make it part of the culture of the organization.
Definitely.
I think I see one more.
Yeah.
What's the learning curve to use this tool? Believe it or not, and at the risk of losing my job, I guess it's as easy as we presented. The hardest part about this entire tool is probably messing about in Excel or getting the information into an event log. Once you have that table of events, the import is like one click go and it'll produce for you the model. Now, the difficulty is reading that model, understanding and pulling those insights like we did, and then doing a problem analysis or a situation appraisal to prioritize it. But the overall tool itself is a import model created.
All right. So that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you all for participating. If there are any other questions that you all have, please feel free to reach out to Shane or Carl, and we will follow up with you all through email and provide a copy of this recording.
Thank you for joining us today on our tour through process mining.
I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great one, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.